We're at the scene of Orgreave, Orgreave, South Yorkshire, a place of a great battle during the miners' strike between picketing miners and the police, or so-called police. Nick's running a campaign into an investigation on what happened on that day. Please tell us a bit about it, Nick.
Yes, Danny. Well, first of all, the strike as a whole, a lot of people say that if Arthur Scargill had held a ballot, he'd still have had a strike and there'd have been a lot more support, it would have been different, but he handled it wrongly. Whatever the position on that, the fact is that the miners all said, the striking miners said, the Thatcher government has a plan to close down Britain's coal industry. The government denied it. It was very clear after the strike and since that exactly was the plan. It's a disaster for Britain in strategic terms. You can actually see behind us, we could if it wasn't for the snow, a couple of windmills there. This is their alternative to proper energy which provides jobs, which is realistic. You know, it's a nonsense energy, this stuff, but that's a little by the by. Coming back, as you say, behind us here was where the Orgreave plant was, a coking plant, and there was thousands of striking miners, and the police determined to break through. The battles here, there was vast amounts, video evidence, very clear evidence of real police brutality. Police completely out of control. There's famous pictures of police on horseback wielding batons at miners, women who were here in support, their wives and families and so on. Really brutal treatment. There's also consistent reports of apparent policemen talking to their superiors in terms of corporal, sergeant. In other words, that many of the policemen in fact were army here, brought in by the government to break the strike. After, since 84 people I think it was, were arrested on one day, striking miners. Again, scenes of very significant brutality. At the end of it, they were all found not guilty, but the police had used these tactics to, in effect, break the strike at this point. And there's never been a proper inquiry. No policemen have been brought to book. This is the same police area, South Yorkshire, that was also involved in the cover-up at Hillsborough. And I think you've got a common denominator. Basically, they weren't too far apart, the miners' strike and Hillsborough. In both cases, you've got the police force thinking, basically, the people there are working-class scum. We can hammer them, and no one's going to do anything about it. And it needs bringing up, not just, to my mind, this isn't just about the miners now and their wives getting on a bit now. It's not just about justice for that, for them. My lips are going so cold I can hardly speak here. It's not just about the past, although that is important. It's also the fact we're coming into an area of really bitter austerity, and there's going to be protests. There's going to be protests against council tax rises, protests against the bedroom tax, protests against unemployment and kids being forced to work for nothing, and so on. And if the powers that be feel that however big a protest is, they can break it by force and by breaking the law, then that's what they'll do. So they need to be called to account for what they did back then to stop them doing it in the future. It's not just for people's dads and granddads and their grandmas, it's actually for their kids and for their grandchildren as well.
Thanks for that, Nick. So hopefully we can get this campaign rolling and have a proper inquiry into what happened on that day at Orgreave.
Yeah, can I just make now a direct appeal to camera for people watching? What we need most of all is for people to come forward and to provide statements. That's what needs to be done to really push for an inquiry. People who are here, so far very interestingly, we talked to, we're hoping to get him to agree to do a statement, perhaps off camera because he's very nervous about it. A policeman who was here, who, because he was actually associated with this area, knew what was going on. He did not like what he was forced to do, and he's felt bad about it ever since and wants to speak out about it. But we need people to come forward. A lot of people in the area, I know we found already, and Danny's found people who, the moment they are asked to think about the strike, talk about the strike, they just shut down, don't they? They don't want to talk about it. It really is, post-traumatic stress, it's a sort of a fashionable thing to talk about, but I think it really is the case. So if you either were there, someone in your family was there, on either side, whatever they thought about it, please get in touch and we'll talk it through, because the right statements which force the powers that be to re-examine this case and to finally get justice, and a statement as to what really happened, what the orders really were on that day and during that strike. It, as I said just a little while ago, it can stop the same kind of illegality and brutality being used against legitimate protesters in the future, and that's really important. Thank you.